Golf Central on YouTube, brought to you by the Chrome Soft Golf Ball from Callaway.
In terms of the PGA Tour leading our sport forward, again, when you go back to our framework agreement, we have put an end to the divisive and distracting litigation. We have safeguards that are in place to put the PGA Tour in a position to control our future. And as I sit here today, I am confident that we will reach an agreement that achieves a positive outcome for the PGA Tour and our fans. I see it, and I'm certain of it. I would say that we operate in good faith, and I see that on both sides. And that framework agreement, which is an agreement to reach an agreement, put us in a position to reach an agreement, those safeguards that are in place and our commitment to moving from, the divisive nature of the relationship we had to a productive one, for us to be able to make a fundamental transition to our business with the formation of NewCo, to have an investable entity for PIF to be able to invest in that didn't previously exist, for the PGA Tour to, be in control of the future of men's professional golf, and for us to be partners. If we were going to end the litigation, we would have just announced that we were ending the litigation. And our teams, if you saw the amount of conversation and the time that the PGA Tour, DP World Tour, and PIF are spending working forward from a framework to a definitive, I think you'd see that the sincerity of the efforts there.
As far as the negotiations on the framework agreement, can you quantify where they're at? Is it just at the beginning? Are you far along? Any recent talks?
Yeah, quantifying is always an interesting thing when you're talking about a negotiation. There are frequent talks. Tyler and Ron Price, who did a tremendous job in my absence, are leading conversations with the team from PIF. And I would just say, given the fact that there's frequency of talks, including Keith Pelley from DP World Tour, we're probably right where I would expected that we would be. But there's, so there's an intensity and there's an urgency and there's a lot of good work that's being done.
Do you have any reason to believe you wouldn't get it done by January 1?
We're confident that we're going to reach a positive outcome for the PGA Tour. And as it relates to reason not to believe or believe, at this point, given what Tyler just outlined and what I said, no, I don't have any reason to think that we won't be successful. Anytime you talk to a leader of any other organization, once you get to this position, it's pretty standard that there isn't a lot that you're going to be able to share, but we continue to reinforce the fact that the framework agreement is the path that we're on, and when we're able to share more information, we will. But it's also, I think they also understand that with the governance we have in place, we're not going to be able to, it's our job to put forward the best possible construct with PIF for the future. And we're going to take that back to our board, and ultimately they're going to decide whether, we're going to move forward with it. I think players have a comfort level that ultimately that's that process is that's a process that they're getting more comfortable with now that they understand it.
A quick follow from your perch. How would you gauge the mood of the players from June 6th to now, and if it's changed, what and why has it changed?
I think you'd have to ask the players that, but for me specifically, first of all, the players are focused on the FedEx Cup playoffs and the Tour Championship. And I have, from my conversations and from the great work that our team has done, I think if I were to succinctly put it, and this is the way Jack Nicklaus put it to me, the proof is in the pudding. And so I think players are now saying, okay, I understand what we're trying to accomplish and why we've taken this step. I understand that, the confidential nature of what we're dealing with and how you plan to handle that within the governance. And at this point, I think players are focused on their play, and they know, as we move forward, and certainly as we move towards the end of the year, there's a responsibility and expectation from them towards me and the team that, we're going to be in a position to communicate a positive outcome for the PGA Tour. To me, when I assess my own performance, I usually don't do it in points in time. And ultimately, I think we're sitting here in August, and yes, we're competing for the FedEx Cup. And I'm determined to put the PGA Tour in the best possible place by the time we get to the end of the year. And as I said earlier, I see it. And I'm certain that's where we're going to end up. And I fully acknowledge that this hasn't been an easy road. And I fully acknowledge for that matter, that there are some things that are the basis for your question. But ultimately, I really do feel very strongly about the result we're going to have. And more importantly, you look at, this year. So we were sitting here a year ago, and if you had told me that we'd be in a position where these incredible stories would have developed, these remarkable performances, and there's so many of them I can't even, I don't want to start naming them because then I'm not going to be naming another player that had a remarkable year. But what's most important through this all is that the PGA Tour has gotten stronger. I mentioned all the data earlier, and the fabric of competition, the meritocracy of the PGA Tour, that feeling that our fans have when they're watching our tournaments come to conclusion, in addition to our players and the support we have. It's not me. The model itself continues to progress and grow. And that's the broader team effort, and that's what I'm focusing on and making certain that we continue.
Are you committed that the century will happen in Kapalua?
Absolutely. But I think at this point, there's so many unknowns. And we want to be respectful of the challenges. We want to help be a part of the revitalization. There are a lot of considerations. We're committed, if we're allowed to, if we're invited, if we're embraced, given all that needs to be accomplished, we will be there 100%.